Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about problems like being pretty, like older siblings struggling to be nice to younger siblings, like what to do with spirited children, with neurodivergent children, with children who have trouble losing and playing games fairly. What do I think about homeschooling, unschooling, Waldorf, etc.? Independent play for older children like tweens and teens. And we're going to talk about how involved we should be in our children's schooling. Like, should we be checking homework and that kind of thing? This is our last and final installment of Ask Me Questions that I will commit to answering. No question goes unanswered in our April reset. This is your last chance to test out my coaching with all of these questions. I will try and go live just one more time today to answer any more questions that are coming in about the studio. But let's get going because we have some amazing questions here. All right. Lisa writes, as far as I understood, you have a spirited child as well. Are there special ideas and tips in daily life, aggression, impulse control, etc.? Okay, so the first thing I would say, if you think that you have a spirited child, is that I am quite cautionary about labeling kids, labeling temperaments. I think there's a time and a place for diagnosis. There's a time and a place for, personality tests, understanding what type we are. But sometimes it has a little bit of horoscope energy in the sense that it's more, storytelling. It's not as evidence-based. It's not as useful. It's kind of like a Rorschach test that it's, you read into it what you have a preconceived notion about. And that I think sometimes it lends itself to confirmation bias. So what do I mean by that? Is that once you've labeled your child spirited, which doesn't really mean anything, objective. It just means that you think your child is more intense, feels things more deeply, is more emotional, has lower impulse control, is maybe more likely to take risks or more sensitive, right? It means that you think all these things that people talk about when they talk about spirited children. Then you're going to collect evidence that that is true. And you're going to minimize evidence that your child might sometimes be really reasonable or calm or manageable or cooperative or wise or patient or all sorts of things. Now, do I have a couple of children who would easily fall under that spirited label? Yeah, I do. But I'm cautionary with myself. I'm cautious. And I'm a bit resistant to slapping those labels on kids unless they are really useful. So I think labels are only really useful when they help us get the resources or the therapy or the medicine that we need. And otherwise, apart from those cases, they can be very limiting and unhelpful. And so that's the first thing I would say is just release the label. Like, I know I would definitely have been labeled all sorts of things as a child. I would definitely have been maybe eligible for all sorts of diagnoses that we have today. And I'm really glad that my parents didn't box me in. They didn't kind of force me to identify in a particular way. They didn't even label my character as something that was unchangeable, as something that was fixed about me. They really helped me develop a growth mindset. And in a growth mindset, we see that what we put effort into, we can change, we can grow. I believe that people are very malleable. I believe that people have extensive brain plasticity throughout their life. They can grow, they can change. I know that I have changed my personality in a pretty dramatic way throughout my life. I've seen people change their marriages in the most dramatic ways throughout their lives. And I believe that it's important to raise children with the mindset that they can change and grow as well. And so I think labeling is on the whole more disabling than helpful unless it's for a real, true medical diagnosis that needs medical and professional intervention. That's the first thing. Now let's get on to the actual support and help I have for you when it comes to kids who are, struggling with aggression or with impulse control. Okay, so the first thing I think is very, very important as a tool that I think all children should learn, all people, all adults, one of these kind of catch-all, very useful tools in our lives is the ability to take a break when you get triggered. Okay, so before you can take a break, you have to notice I'm getting triggered. And I think knowing that we're getting triggered, knowing that we are, entering into an unreasonable state, fight or flight, we're going to be more aggressive. We're going to have trouble with impulse control. We're going to say things that we regret. We're going to be maybe more violent or explosive or all those kind of things when we're triggered. Now, learning what triggers you, why you got triggered, how to control your triggers, how to get triggered less, how to stay calm more, right? That's a fantastic thing. And we're going to talk about it in a minute. But first, I just want you to teach your child. I've taught my children Dr. Daniel Siegel's basic idea of like showing them a brain with your fist and saying, this is your kind of, most evolved prefrontal cortex area where you plan, where you have executive function, where you have impulse control, where you have really thinking things through and understanding consequences. And down back here is your more what we call reptilian brain, where you just react, where you're just in survival, where you just treat your mom like a saber-toothed tiger who's coming to eat you because she said no to more Minecraft, right? And so I teach them that when this part of the brain goes offline, when they're not thinking things through, it's when their body is getting intense, where their heart is beating fast, when their cheeks are flushing, when they're making fists in their hands, when they're gritting their teeth. Those types of things are not, those aren't good times to do anything. You need to just take a break. That's like being drunk. That's like having diarrhea, whatever metaphor you want to put on it. You need to seek privacy and wait it out. So learning to recognize I'm getting triggered and then learning to take a break, okay? The pause, right? You've got to stop. You've got to reset. You've got to go into your bedroom. You've got to go away from people. I don't care where you are. Just don't talk to me right now. Don't talk to your siblings right now. Don't do anything right now. Take a break until your brain comes back online and calm yourself down. That's really what's important, right? When we're drunk, we don't drive. We just take a break and sleep it off. Okay. So, and then after they've calmed down, right? After they've calmed down or before they get triggered, those are the coachable moments. Those are the teachable times. Those are the times that they are able to listen, to hear, to understand, to learn. And that's when we actually have to teach them to question their mindsets, to learn to actually not react so negatively to everything, right? And this is very, very important. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is children often come into the world with a temperament, maybe it's nature, often learn a certain set of mindsets from us or from the surroundings. Maybe it's nurture. Either way, having a mindset that skews negative, that skews in all sorts of directions, like black and white thinking, like minimizing good things and maximizing bad things, like catastrophizing and thinking everything's going to go wrong, like personalizing and thinking everything is about me, being narcissistic, being self-absorbed, like thinking everything should always be fair, or all manner of cognitive fallacy. Children have those bad mindsets, and it sets them up for a life of struggle in their relationships, in their personal endeavors, in their growth and studies, because they're always interpreting things through a negative bent. It's really a little bit like putting on a pair of glasses that have some kind of weird filter on them, right? That skews everything, and it makes everything harder to see clearly, to make good decisions, to move around the world. So spirited children, children who are labeled by their parents as spirited, are often just children who interpret the world through a skewed lens for whatever reason, nature or nurture, doesn't even matter, okay? They tend towards complaining, towards pessimism, towards selfishness, towards seeing things in a defensive way. I didn't do it. It wasn't mine. It's not fair. I was sitting there, right? They're always just very busy seeing things through a skewed lens. And the real advice, the deepest transformation I can offer you, and I can offer you this inside the studio, and it closes today, so join today, is I can teach you to teach them to look at the world in a clearer way, to remove that skewed filter and to start to see things in a more positive light, whether that's looking through other people's perspectives and being more empathic towards them, whether it's being more resilient with myself, like I can handle it, it's not such a big deal, I don't need to break down because of this, whether it's understanding that sometimes things go wrong and it doesn't mean anyone was particularly mean or cruel to me, it's just life, sometimes things happen, right? Building resilience, those types of things. That's the type of thing that we really, really need, okay? We need to build cognitive flexibility and future-oriented thinking and problem solving, right? And that's what we do when we debrief with them after they've had an explosive episode or before. We can actually prevent it by saying, we're going to be going on a hike today. Sometimes on a hike, you get really disheartened and you feel tired, and then you start whining and complaining, and that ruins it for everyone. So let's talk about how we can come in with a ninja mindset, with a can-do attitude. What can we do to help you not even let your brain go into that place of feeling, I can't do this, it's not fun, it's not fair, that type of thing. Okay, so those are the types of things we want to help our children with, our spirited children. Put the label to one side and just actually help them recognize their triggers, take a break when they get triggered, and coach their mindset so that they get triggered much less. Okay. I very much hope that helps, Lisa. Labi is here live and she is asking, hello, Avital. Tips on how to delegate household chores to kids 13, 10, 9, and 7, especially when they go to school and afterwards they have studying and activities. I find it difficult to find the right time. Okay, Labi, thanks so much for asking a question. Inside the studio, we have a project called Team Clean, and it's all about establishing a 15-minute routine every single day where basically everyone works together, all hands on deck, and we create this habit, right? That we link it to dinner, or we link it to bedtime, or we link it to leaving the house in the morning, right? Where there's, everybody kind of just grabs their chore, grabs what they're doing, or just looks around the house for things that need to, I'm going to pick up all these things. I'm going to put the shoes away. I'm going to sweep the floor, right? And that is one way of doing it, of establishing a team clean that just becomes habitual. Just like you brush your teeth every morning, you spend, it doesn't even have to be 15 minutes. It could be 5 minutes with so many people, right? With so many people, you could do a lot in 5 minutes if everyone was working at 100%. So that's one thing I would do, is establish it as a habit. I invite you into the studio so that you could actually, take on these projects and make them work. And inside the studio, we actually dedicate an entire month every year of our leadership curriculum to teaching you how to establish teamwork, right? How to work as a team to manage our household. We don't run homesteads anymore in the same way that people used to, or family businesses, but we are still a team. We are still, co-founders, you and your partner, of your home, and your children are your team members. And they do need to feel that sense of belonging, that sense of accountability, the sense of responsibility, the ability and the competence and the skills to fold laundry or to scramble an egg or whatever it is that they're doing. And so that's the type of thing that I really help you, overcoming the bad mindsets, the pushback, the argumentation, the feeling like, forget it, I'll just do it myself. It's too hard to get the kids to do it. They don't do a good job anyway. And the reason I strongly encourage this and continue to teach it is because it's so good for kids to do chores. It's so important for their development, their social and emotional skills, their sense of belonging. It's very protective for them in terms of mental health. Kids who work and help in their household are much less likely to fall prey to bad ideologies, to bad groups, to be very influenced by, poor influences. So it's a really good idea for them. You're not working them hard and being unfair. In fact, you're giving them a gift when you do that. So those are all the things I can offer you inside the studio and teach you how to establish those and give you the accountability and the coaching to set it up. But for here, I'll just say definitely carve out that time. And I think what's really important is understanding that you don't go to an activity, or you don't start your screen time, or you don't get in bed without having done the things that you need to do. Like if there's a pile of laundry on your bed, you have to put it away before you get in bed. Don't think that you're going to go and play a video game with a friend when you haven't, taken the dog on a walk. That was your job and you need to do it. So following up and holding boundaries and following through on your rules is something that I can teach you how to do. I know it's not easy in today's day and age, but that is something that our children need so that they can establish these good habits and establish this self-awareness. Labi, does that make sense? And does that answer your question? Let me know in the comments, and let me know if I will see you inside the studio. It closes today, and I would love to see you there at highfam.com/studio. All right, let's keep going with Priscilla's question. She says, my 9-year-old daughter cries when she loses at games. Any suggestions on how to handle this? Okay. Yes. I'm going to tell you how to handle this because it's really, really important. Okay. Let's start with the fact that it's normal to feel disappointed when you lose a game. Okay. And that normal feeling is often rescued by parents, right? We swoop in, oh no, you actually won. Don't worry. We're all winning. Okay, now I'm going to lose next time, right? And we sometimes just save them from that feeling because we don't like to see our children disappointed because we love our children and we don't want them to have bad feelings. But it's really important to let children just feel disappointed without fixing it. And the reason for that is it's a little bit like, being exposed to germs when you're a kid. If you're not exposed to germs, if you're in a completely sterile environment, then you are going to have a much harder time contending with those germs when you're older. You need to develop your immune system, right? And the way we develop it is actually through exposure, not lack of exposure. And so what we need to do is let them feel those feelings without rescuing. You can just say, yeah, losing stinks sometimes. It's okay, and let her cry. You say she cry when she loses at game, so just let her cry. Now, I wouldn't encourage the crying. I wouldn't I think it's good at the age of 9 to start learning not to cry when you lose, but it's okay to just feel, right? To just feel those feelings and not get rescued by your parents, okay? The second thing that you can do is to reframe the goal, okay? You can shift your focus from the winning to, okay, but what did you try when you were playing? What will you do differently next time? What can you learn from how you lost? Because it's very important that our children learn that failures are just lessons, right? They're not big deals. Losing in a game is just a lesson on how to play better next time, right? And not to take it as this big, terrible thing, not to make it mean something about me, not to make it crush me, not to make me not try again in the future, but rather to be able to reverse engineer and backtrack and analyze, okay, here's what I did. Here's what I do differently in the future. Here's why I lost, right? And that's okay because I'm going to learn from it and it's going to help me in that way. Okay, and I want them to develop that entrepreneurial mindset that losing is just a lesson on the way, right? And learning to be able to self-reflect and think about it, okay? And here's the hardest part, but it's important, is that you want to have her lose a lot. You want to actually practice low stakes games where you model graceful losing and you coach her through graceful losing. Like, it's okay. You lost. I know it feels disappointing. Just let that feeling wash over you and let's handle it like champs, right? Let's be sportsmanlike, right? Let's have good game etiquette. I lost. Now you're losing. Maybe next time you'll win. Maybe next time you'll lose. We're okay. We can handle it. We move on. Now, at 9 years old, I would also introduce a little bit of tough love, okay? And the little bit of tough love goes something like this. Sweetie, it's okay to feel disappointed when you lose. But if you're a sore loser, if you cry a lot, if you make a big deal out of it, if you throw the game on the floor and say it's not fair, people aren't going to want to play with you, okay? How would you want your opponent to lose? If you win, what should your opponent say to you? They should say, good game, well done, and shake your hand, right? And I believe that you are old enough now to be mature enough to also do that. You can shake your opponent's hand. You can say congratulations on winning. You can ask to play again. But when you cry and break down from it, it's sending the message that you're not mature enough to play this game, that you can't handle it. And I want people to play with you. I want you to have fun. So let's handle this together, right? And it's okay to put it a little bit in perspective, right, sweetie? It's a game. We don't cry over games. I know I said let her cry, and you can let her cry. It's fine for her to feel those feelings, but it's also fine for her to adjust those feelings, to learn to question that mindset, to remind herself and coach herself that it's just a game. We cry when we get physically hurt. We cry when we suffer emotional losses. We cry when we hear very sad news. We don't need to cry over games. Games are supposed to be for fun. And I want you to learn that. And I want you to teach your brain and your body that you don't react to terrible, to normal things, to fine things, to okay things as if they're terrible, right? And this is that mindset coaching piece. In gentle parenting, we're so busy just saying, accept the feelings, accept the feelings. And I'm saying, well, yeah, that's the first step. The first step is a bit of empathy, but the second step is to teach her not to feel those feelings because she's having negative thoughts about losing. She thinks it's the end of the world. She thinks it means something about her. She thinks it's so unfair. She thinks she should always win. Those are the thoughts that you need to address through the coaching, right? That's what I teach inside the mindset coaching piece. All right. Awesome. Let's go on to the next question. And the next question is from Silly Lala Dida. Hello. Welcome. And she asks, hello, Avital. Please talk about strategies for maintaining adult friendships. I hear you talk about how important it is for us and our children to have a community that can act as our tribe and our village. I was wondering if you could expand on this idea a bit and take us on a journey of how you have been able to keep your friendships. It seems like mothers are always too busy, exhausted, stressed, or invested in their own lifestyle to maintain healthy, intimate, and long-term friendships. How do you find friends that can roll with your strong personality and character and who have the time to raise your children together? And I'm going to combine this with a question from Taryn. And she writes, I caught you saying that you and your husband had to work to build your community. How did this look? Did you have similar roadblocks? Okay. And Saral Parenting says, hi, Vital. I have always been your biggest fan. Thank you. You have been my mentor in ways you can't even imagine. Zainab here from India. Zainab, thank you so much. It's so beautiful to hear that. I love to see you here on my live, and I appreciate that very, very kind, warm comment. And I hope I see you inside the studio today. Okay. So how do you create and maintain adult friendships as a parent? So first of all, will you let me know in the comments right now how satisfied on a scale of 0 to 10 you feel with your adult friendships? Do you feel that you have someone to call at the end of a tough parenting day that can commiserate, that can validate, that can hear, that can give you some good coaching, that, you know, have the same kind of struggles as you? Do you feel that if you have a birthday, or if you have something you want to celebrate, if you finally finish your book or want to get fit, or all sorts of projects, you have someone who you could talk to, who you could be with about that, who you could share that with? Do you feel that you have a family that your family could potentially go on vacation with, or celebrate, Independence Day with, or, enjoy Thanksgiving with if your families weren't around? Those types of things. How good do you feel about your adult friendships? 0 being no friendships, we're isolated, we're lonely. 10 being we have the community of our dreams. The first thing I will tell you about maintaining adult friendships and community is that you need to choose effort over ease, which is hard. We all just want the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest pathway. But friendship in adulthood, when you have a job and you have a family, isn't spontaneous. It won't just happen. If you do not invest in it, you will be isolated and lonely. If you do not put it on a priority, I know you have a million other priorities on your to-do list. I know you have your health and your work and your kids and your household, and I get it completely. But it's very important to understand that there are some hidden things that are easy to overlook, that are easy to ignore, that if we don't invest in them and we don't create them, then let's put it this way, aging is going to be really tough. Okay, when your kids move out of your home, when you're a little bit older, when you have a little bit more time on your hands, maybe when you're retired, you're going to really be glad that you invested in community. Before that, God forbid, if you go through tough times, if there's a diagnosis, if there's a financial downturn, if there's, something that you need support from, you're going to be really happy if you invested a little bit in just a bit of community, okay, a bit of close relationships. So you have to understand that adulthood demands scheduled, intentional, often inconvenient investment in friendships. So you need to accept that there's going to be resistance. You're going to think, I'm too tired. It's too awkward. We're too old for this. They won't like me. My kids will embarrass me. My house is too small. My house is too messy. I'm not a good enough cook. I don't want to spend money on this. I'd rather be doing laundry. I'd rather be doing my work, right? You're going to have all of the excuses in the book. But I'm going to encourage you to do it anyway. And that's because there is so much research to show that isolation and loneliness is, a fast track to deterioration, both physically and mentally. There is so much research to show that especially women really need their girlfriends. They really need friends who they can, chew each other's ears off, talk over coffee, share our feelings, analyze ourselves to death. Those are the kind of things that we need. And when we were living in hunter-gatherer clans, we would just sit around the campfire and jabber away. Fine. We don't have that anymore. We have to recreate that. We have to build that. Okay, so yes, it's awkward. I have to tell you, I've recently made a very close friend and I literally pursued her. Okay, I felt like, oh, I'm hitting on her, I'm chasing her, I'm texting her, I'm inviting her, I'm trying again. We're rain checking and I'm trying again, and it's embarrassing or awkward or unpleasant, or it spikes your fear of rejection, or you feel like you're a fraud or a failure or all those kind of things. But it's like, no, I'm gonna try. We're gonna have that coffee. We're gonna go on that walk. I'm gonna invite you over for that meal. And so that's the first thing, is that you've got to put in the effort. The second thing is that if you want relationships with adults where you could drop each other's you could drop your kids off at each other's houses when you have an appointment, or when there's a bank holiday or a fun day, you would naturally kind of join together and go on a hike or a picnic together or do a barbecue together or whatever, then you've got to lead, right? And this is a theme throughout my work. It's probably one of the things that makes me unpopular and makes it very hard to listen to what I'm saying, is because I'm advocating for effort and leadership. I'm telling you, pick up the baton. You lead, you create, you be the captain of the ship. You want honest, ride or die friendships, you've got to model it. You've got to be vulnerable. You've got to initiate. You've got to invite, right? You've got to stop waiting to be chosen and start building the community that you wish existed. Because communities that are strong, friendships that are strong, always have an initiator behind them. They always have that one person who had ambition, who had drive, who had a bit of time on their hands, who was willing to invest, who was willing to go out and set up the picnic tables or invite the people or make the Canva invitation or call again and again until it worked out, or follow up on the rain check. They always have someone who was taking initiative, who was leading. Just like I'm encouraging you to lead your family to do chores, to do meal times together, to host other families, to have valuable, meaningful conversations. I'm going to encourage you to do all of that. I'm going to encourage you to be fit. I'm going to encourage you to sleep well, right? We're looking for a well-rounded life, for a full expression of health in all areas of our life. Also going to encourage you to initiate when it comes to building community. Open your home. And this is why inside the studio, we do things like decluttering. We do things like high vibing the home with plants and nice lighting and nice objects and clear surfaces. Because when your home feels high vibed, you're more likely to invite someone in, right? When your schedule is streamlined, you're more likely to be able to make time for those friendships, for that coffee, for that walk, right? You've got to get your ducks in a row. And if you feel like right now you're overwhelmed, you don't even know where to start, don't start with adult friendships. Don't start with hosting. Don't start with that. Start with the basics. Come into the studio today and start with decluttering. Start with getting clear on your vision of the types of friendships that you want and the types of community you want to build. Start with getting yourself feeling, okay, I'm well rested. I've slept. My brain is on, I feel glowed up. I have a couple of t-shirts that don't have stains all over them and I can wear them. I feel good in my skin. I feel good in my home. Those are the types of things that give you that pep in your step, that energy to then, hit on that mom in the Trader Joe's line and tell her, hey, I see our kids are the same age as you. Live around here, right? That's what gives you the confidence to then start expanding your community. Okay. But I think another quick tip here is to find community in your neighborhood, right? Maybe it's joining a church. Maybe it's joining a bike club or a running club. Maybe it's something that happens at the local library, on the community center, or in the school, right? You can kind of try to connect with local groups and local communities that help you to build that. Okay. Now, the final thing I would say is that not every friend needs to be everything, right? We have lots of different types of friends. Maybe there's a school run friend, there's the soul sister, Don't over romanticize. Do not over expect from each friendship. Invest in the willing, in the what does work, not in the perfect. I think many of us have been ruined by Hollywood rom-coms the same way they've ruined marriages, they've ruined friendships, expecting this to be this kind of, ultimate connection, soul sisters on every level. And I can tell you, I have friends that I love having political debates with, and I have friends that I love talking about parenting with, and I have friends that we're gonna, work out together, and I have other friends that will have whole family meetups because their husbands and my husbands get on and our kids get on, right? But that's not true for all friends at all time, and you have to kind of take what works from each friendship and nurture that. But yeah, you're going to have to be the leader. You're going to have to pick up the phone. You're going to have to be a good listener. You're going to have to be a good hostess and initiate in order to build these things, right? In order to create them. So you said we had to work to build our community. How did this look? We had to work very hard over many, many years, and we continue to work on it. It's an ongoing project, just like we work on our marriage, just like we work on our parenting, right? It's organic. It's holistic. It changes, it grows, it adapts. But the way that we work on it is all the things I've just said. So first, you need that foundation of having a home that you feel. One of my students was like, "This is the craziest thing, but I would love to host more people. I want to invite people over from our church, but I literally don't have enough chairs." And she's like, "I'm getting limited from inviting people because I don't have enough seating space." Okay, she went out and bought some plastic chairs, right? Problem solved. Now she's overcome that threshold. But here's the crazy thing. For about 6 years, she wasn't inviting people over because she didn't take that step. So that's why we need to talk about the foundational things that are sometimes just, very overcomable barriers that we're holding ourselves back because we just didn't take the time or energy to really overcome them. Ruta says, I went from having 2 friends that I never really saw because we live in different cities to quite a full, beautiful circle of women, and have experienced true depth of friendship only in my 30s. And a big part of it was the community curriculum in the studio. 5 years later, since joining, I have an amazing people in my life now, all because I had that encouragement and mindset. Amazing. So in the studio, it's true, Ruta. Thank you for reminding me. Inside the studio, we have an entire season that is dedicated to community. In that season, we talk about our friendships, our kinship, our relationships with our family, influences like mentors and teachers and people who we employ, like, I don't know, doctors, right? And particularly when it comes to friendships, I teach you how to build the mindsets, how to build the skills, how to build the social skills, right? To develop those, to nurture them. And I strongly, strongly encourage you to do so. I also want to say that the studio itself is an amazing community of people. We have members from all over the world, and they give tremendous support and wisdom. And, it's really, really a true pleasure and honor to raise our children together in there. Okay, next question is from Anna. And she writes, excuse me. Avital, thank you. Your advice is invaluable. Thank you, Anna. Could I ask what to do with an older sibling that is constantly winding up the younger sibling so he reacts and then tries to get him in trouble due to it? Sometimes I can see why the younger one hits out, because the elder has just goads him and goads him despite me asking him not to. Many, many thanks, Anna. Okay. So the first thing I would say is that with this older child, assuming that they are, 6 and over, okay, maybe even 4 and over, but certainly 6 and over, is that you can call out the pattern, okay? Not just the behavior, not just in that moment, but that this is a generalized pattern. I have conversations that look like this with my child, okay? Hey, sweetie, can I talk to you a minute about your relationship with your brother? I'm noticing that you keep winding him up until he reacts, okay? I'm noticing that you're poking at him, that you're slapping his butt, that you're taking a toy, that you're teasing him. And you're doing this very regularly. And I don't see that as fair play. I see that you're baiting him to try and get him to react and then coming and telling on me when he hits you. I'm just curious, can you tell me about that? What do you think? Have you noticed this about yourself? Right? So I want you to name it and actually build awareness and accountability. Dude, you keep doing this. You keep doing something that is not okay. You keep doing something that's creating a bad atmosphere in our home. And that is frankly very unpleasant and very unfair on your younger sibling. Now, sometimes older siblings have trouble empathizing with younger siblings. We actually have to really get them into the younger sibling's mindset. So, for example, with my oldest, I can get into a younger sibling's mindset easily because I am a younger sibling. But with my oldest, and I've had to work on understanding the older sibling's experience, right? Of, this, cute little kid that keeps getting off the hook, that doesn't have the same amount of chores as me, all that stuff. Okay. But my oldest can't get into that mindset of, I really look up to my older sibling. I really just want them to like me and to play with me. And then they're constantly mean to me and it's infuriating, right? So I tell my oldest, think about kids a year or two older than you in school. Think about your cousins who you look up to. Okay. Imagine that they were constantly trying to get a rise out of you, constantly trying to poke and annoy you and goad you. And then when you finally react, they go and tell on you. How would that make you feel? Is that the type of person you want to be? I'm sure you're not even aware of just how unkind that is. But it isn't kind, and it's frankly ruining the atmosphere in our home because there's constant conflict over it, and no wonder. You're actually initiating this, you know that? I don't know where it comes from. Maybe you're annoyed with your sibling. Maybe you need some attention. Maybe you're bored, and I have a whole list of chores for you. If you're bored, there's a lot that you could do. A lot of skills you could learn, a lot of things you could be doing with your time. Poking your little brother is not one of them, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is that you can use natural consequences, okay, instead of too much lecturing. So what I said just now sounds a little bit lectury. Keep it short, keep it succinct, but definitely share it, okay? But notice that if he's instigating, you need to remove the payoff, right? You need to separate them or limit their shared privileges or assign him a task, right? Instead of just saying, don't do that, right? The outcome needs to change. It can't just be, well, I got off scot-free. I tried. I shot my shot. I poked my brother and my mom said, don't do that. And then I moved on, right? No. If you're going to mistreat someone, there's going to be a different outcome. You're going to lose, basically. Kids have to have links between choices and behaviors and outcomes. And we've got to link the correct ones and unlink the incorrect ones. So, for example, if you were giving it, oh, I see you're goading your brother. I guess you need more attention from me. Come, my child. Let's have a fun activity and special time together. Then you're basically linking, I goad my brother, I get a reward, right? Not good. Not good. We want to reward positive behavior, okay? So it needs to be, I goad my brother, I get a negative consequence. For example, I can see that you're not in a position to be with other people right now. You can go and be by yourself. You can go and play a puzzle. You can go and read a book. You can't be with other people until you can treat people with respect. I would love to spend time with you. I actually wanted to include you in the baking I'm about to do, but I can't do that if you're poking people. So until you can apologize authentically and move on and not do that again, you need to be in a different room, okay? For example, okay? Or he's going to be watching the movie and you're not because you are just bugging him. Okay. Or, okay, I see that you are very bored and you're taking your boredom out on your sibling. You know what? The floor needs to be swept. Now it's time for you to sweep the floor. Okay. And then you really want to coach emotional leadership. Okay. Challenge the older sibling to be the leader, not the trigger. Okay. You can say, honey, you have a really special power as the older sibling. Okay. You are capable of setting the tone. You are capable of making a great atmosphere, of role modeling wonderful things, okay? Not just reacting, not just being cruel or mean or making fights all the time. You have a real power. You can make the tone of the family a good, positive tone for all of you together, okay? And so in that sense, you reframe the control as a strength, not as a manipulation, okay? And you want him to see that, wow, I have a good role, I have, I could rise to the occasion. I could do better things. Okay. And that will be really good coaching for him. York, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, says, I have had that issue not so long ago. 6 years of difference. Lucky for me, girls. I was just as clear with the oldest and it worked wonders. Excellent. Madette Wright says, I'm a strong authoritative parent. I do not know how to validate. Do you have a book or guide that could help me begin to learn how to speak and validate their emotions and what they are going through? One of my favorite books about communication is How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. I think it's fantastic, and it's based on the work of Chaim Ginott. And it's great because it also has these little cartoons and just these very simplified systems of like how to talk, what to say. But if you want to go a little bit deeper on validation, then I would recommend Nonviolent Communication. And I can grab you the link for that because there's a particular book that I think is very good. And if not, I'll just put it in the here, it's this one. Okay. By Marshall Rosenberg, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. And I like it because even though it might be a little bit extreme, like I don't think we can do it every single time we communicate, it's given me lifelong tools that I use anytime I'm having, a bit of a tricky, complex conversation. All right. So I'm dropping it in the Instagram comments, and I will share it on the YouTube replay as well. Okay. Okay, let's keep going. Lenny says, okay. This is such great advice, Avital. I remember what you said earlier about gifts, and I fully agree. However, what should I do if I, as a parent, need the thing in my house for whatever reason, like updating the imagination zone, extending the family library, adding a Swedish ladder to our movement zone? Do these things just magically appear in your house? It might be different with 5 children and a large extended family, but for us, we only have 2 children and not many other people who give gifts. Their birthdays are close together as well. Okay, so I'll tell you, sometimes if I'm buying, let's say, a brand new set of books, I do purchase quite a lot of books in our home. Okay. So if I'm buying new books, or if I'm like, oh, we really need more Magnetiles. They play with the Magnetiles and they just use up the whole set. We need another set, or I want another set, or it's time to add a swing to our collection. What I'll sometimes do is save those and tack them on to Christmas. Well, in my case, it's Hanukkah or whatever, or to a birthday, right? I'll be like, okay, I'm giving them their main present or whatever. And I'm also saying this is in honor of your birthday. So one of the things that you might do is, let's say swings in our home have been in honor of kids' birthdays, but they're a family gift, right? It doesn't belong to you, right? Sometimes I'll simply buy things. I'll be like, oh, I bought, a set of Harry Potter books. Okay, I'm just adding it to the library. They're excited. They want to read it. Wonderful. So sometimes I'll save it as a gift. Sometimes it will magically appear. It's not magically appearing. I'm saying I've bought a gift for the family and it's exciting and it's wonderful, but it's not because of Christmas or because of a birthday. Okay. And sometimes they're not presents, right? They're just tools for the kind of home and the kind of culture that you're building, right? So environment design, like, getting a swing, or, reorganizing the toys, or even getting books or clothes, for example. In our family, clothes are not gifts, right? I buy them clothes when they need clothes. It's not relevant to it's not tacked onto a birthday or anything like that. So I do, in some ways in my brain, differentiate between needs and wants. You need clothes. I think of books more like a need, even though of course they're really a want, but I'm like, okay, we need books. And so sometimes those things I'll just buy. They do just magically appear in my house, and they can be exciting and lovely, and they don't need to necessarily wait for a birthday or for another gift giving event, if that makes sense. I think if you feel like, oh, this is going to be great for my kids, sometimes you just buy a toy that you want to introduce into the imagination zone, and you just give it to them because it's just fun and it's wonderful and it's fine. And I would, in a way, prefer that than them getting massive bulk amount of gifts at their birthdays. And the truth is, there's quite an interesting piece of research that shows that it's much better to spread out your positive experiences. So when kids get everything all in one go, it really reduces the level of joy that they get from those things. But if you kind of treat yourself a little bit every so often, that has a much better impact. Okay, so let's just do this again. Let me just summarize. Okay, you can wait till birthdays, you can tack them onto birthdays, but you can also just frame it as family infrastructure, right? Not as a gift, like a swing ladder, a bookshelf, a costume bin. They're not presents, they're tools for the family culture, and you don't need to confuse like environment design with spoiling. Okay, you can also use that we language, not you language that I was saying. Like, we are adding this to our toy space, not look what I bought you, but this is for our family. This is, shifting it from indulgence to intention, right? To keep that entitlement in check. This is not about me spoiling you. This is not a surprise for you. This is not because I'm just lavishing you with gifts. It's because we as a family are upgrading, our movement zone. Okay. And then also another tip that I have here is to anchor new items to your values, not to novelty. So inside the studio, I teach you to really get clear on what your values are. And when you bring something in, you can connect it to a family value, like we're readers, right? That's why I expanded the library. I love to see you guys read. That's something we really believe in. We're going to support that. We're going to invest money in that, right? To help kids associate new things with meaning and not with consumption, as it were, right? It's not about ripping open the package. It's about encouraging the reading, right? It's about the actual value behind that. Lenny, let me know if that all makes sense to you. And we're moving on to Kate. And she writes, my 4-year-old daughter is obsessed with being pretty, her quotation marks, which is a big part of culture, small talk here in South Korea. This extends to a leaning on hair clips, wanting to wear dresses every day, and a strong envy of other little girls who have things like sparkly shoes or similar. How can I approach this issue with her? Okay. All right. So first of all, nothing wrong with being pretty, nothing wrong with femininity, nothing wrong with liking to dress up or, liking sparkly things or pink or unicorns or any of that stuff. And I encourage you to watch my video all about raising feminine girls, because I don't like the attack on femininity and on girls in general, wanting to be girly and that kind of thing. They don't have to be tomboys. They don't have to, reject femininity, and all of that is fine. And it's also very normal and healthy and appropriate and even good in some ways for us to put an emphasis on looking our best, right? However, there is a terrible overemphasis aside of the culture, and you're saying in South Korea that this is very accentuated, that is obsessed, that is just about image, that is all about my brand and my social media presence. And then it will lean into filters and into tweakments and into surgeries. And, it leads into a very hyper focus on materialism. Now, I speak as someone who likes buying clothes. I like looking nice. I like, I care about this stuff to an extent, but I agree with you that being obsessed, especially at 4, is not healthy. Right? A 4-year-old needs to be obsessed with playing, with friends, with learning, with having fun, with growing, not with what they look like. Okay, a little bit of interest and like, no, I want this dress, not that dress, is normal. But being obsessed and being overwhelmed with envy, I think you're right to see those as red flags, right? That's too much. Okay, so the first thing that might help is to widen the definition of being pretty or of beauty in general. One of the things that gets tricky and dangerous for girls is when beauty standards are very narrow, as they are in today's day and age, right? In today's day and age, due to social media, I think what's happened is that people have kind of chosen one celebrity, say it was Kim Kardashian a few years ago, and that became, whatever that celebrity looked like, became the definition of the beauty standard. So you needed lips and hips and a waist and hair and everything like Kim Kardashian. And we saw that actually in the plastic surgery trends where people were changing their face to look like her, right? And that trickles down to younger and younger ages, and it's a real issue. So a very narrow definition of beauty standards means that less and less girls will feel beautiful and will be included in that because we all look different. And a very narrow definition of beauty standards is unhealthy and dangerous in that way. And it's also kind of unfair. And it's also really untrue because there are a million different ways to be beautiful, right? There are many different, skin colors, hair colors, eye colors, shapes, sizes, features that have been considered and could be considered beautiful over the generations. So instead of shutting it down or saying, no, it doesn't matter, or that kind of thing, I would encourage maybe expanding the definition of beauty. Me and my daughter talk a lot about all the different types of beauty that there are from nature, right? The different trees, the different flowers, the different bushes, the different shapes of leaves, how that diversity is so beautiful, and how all the women we know, but like all the women we know of all different ages, of all different sizes, of all different skin colors are also beautiful in their own way, right? So it's not just that there is lots of different types of beauty. It's also that beauty means different things. Someone can be very, very kind and behave really, really well, or be really, really strong, or really, really fast, or have an amazing laugh and an infectious smile. And that is beautiful in its own way, too. It's not just about your external looks, right? So teaching her that beauty matters and it's important, but it comes in all shapes and sizes and forms, and that it includes strength and creativity and character. And one of, I think, the most helpful things to teach young girls, and this is something that I teach my daughter all the time, is that always, I think this is pretty universally true. What becomes the beauty standard is 100% linked to what we perceive as healthy. Okay, so things that look beautiful objectively, scientifically. We are drawn to things that typically signify fertility, right? And therefore are attractive. Just if you just think about pure biology, right? Pure evolutionary psychology of why we reproduce. People are attracted to fertility. So people are attracted to the hip to waist ratio that indicates the highest levels of fertility. But they're also attracted to smooth skin because that indicates youth, right? A lot of things are about indicating youth. Like blonde hair is attractive because it indicates youth, because even blonde people, as they grow up, they get darker hair. So that's why it's always been associated with youth, right? Having like white around your eyes, like not red bloodshot eyes, is considered an indication of health and therefore attractive. All sorts of things like that, right? Muscles are considered attractive because they're an indicator of strength and youth and capacity. Not too overweight and not too underweight, because you need to be at a particular weight to be able to be fertile and to indicate health. Those are the things that we find attractive. Strong hair. Hair and long hair, for example, is attractive because it's almost like a receipt of years of health. You can't grow long, strong hair unless you've had years of good nutrition, right? And it's just interesting to help, let's say, our young daughters in particular see that, if you move your body, if you take care of your skin, if you dress in, clean, nice clothes, if you take care of your hair, if you eat healthy, if you sleep well, then you're going to be radiant and you're going to be beautiful. And that's what really makes someone beautiful, not whether they're wearing sparkly shoes or not, right? So two things here is the diversification of different types of beauty and different levels of beauty, and beauty from the inside out as well. And noticing that even if someone is the most stunning person in the world, if they're mean, if they're rude, if they're crude, if they're abrasive, they suddenly don't look so attractive anymore, right? There's attractive behaviors, there's attractive personalities. And those are the types of things that you really can control even more than your outwards beauty. Okay. So widening the definition, step number one. By the way, let me know in the comments what you think of this. Is this helpful? Is this useful? Is this the kind of conversation you'd like to be having? Is this the kind of input that might help you raising your daughters and your sons? If so, I'd love to hear, because this is exactly the type of thing that we go in depth on inside of the studio. The second thing that I would talk about is affirming, yes, without over focusing. Okay. So you can acknowledge her style, right? Like, oh, you picked that dress. You really thought about what you want to wear. Or, oh, that looks really cool together. I like how you put those together. Or that's a cool hairstyle. but balance it with praising other things. You're being so brave, you're being so helpful, you're working so hard, I love your curiosity, right? What you spotlight, she's internalizing. So spotlight things like strength, mental toughness, emotional stability, good friendship, good values, showing up for other people, being helpful, being kind, all of those things that are important to us that go beyond the physical beauty, right? She needs to hear from us that those are things that we value a lot more. Okay. And then one thing that's very, very important is, especially as mothers, is our own modeling. Our own modeling where we don't, be negative about our own body image or about how we look or about aging. I know these are hard things to do. I struggle with it as well, but it's something that's very, very important. And you might want to say, I feel really confident when I speak up, or I feel really accomplished when I work hard, or I love how this shirt is so comfortable and airy and I just feel good on a hot summer's day in it, right? Learning that beauty is just, is a much bigger, much broader concept than just the narrow trends. Now, I will just add, as I tend to, a moment of tough love after all of that as well, which is that it's also important to teach her that materialism and comparison and envy are not good things. It's not good to be obsessed with looks. It's not good to be envious of other people. And so it's okay to coach her and say, hey, I want to help you reframe that. Okay. Now she's only 4. So with a 4-year-old, there's really very little mindset coaching that we need to do. Okay. It's just a gentle nudge. Okay. It's just a gentle reflection back. Like, oh, if she says, oh, I love Lisa because she has the most amazing clothes. And you can say, oh, sweetie, Lisa does have very beautiful clothes, but that's hardly, why we choose our friends, right? Can you think of some other things you love about Lisa? Maybe she's really funny. Maybe she's really good at playing dolls with you. Maybe she's really strong on the monkey bars, right? Let's talk about other things just about how she looks, right? Or, oh, I'm so jealous that she has those shoes. Yeah, they are really nice shoes. I get why you're jealous. I would want them too. Maybe next birthday we can save up and get those shoes. But let's not be obsessed about, things like that when you already have, 4 beautiful pairs of shoes. We don't need to spend our time always worrying about the things that we'll get and what they look like, right? So all of these kind of things are going to deepen your conversation with her. I want you to do a lot of that modeling, a lot of focus in your family on the things that aren't about external beauty, right? You don't need to invalidate the interest, because I think actually what we look like, it's worth investing in it. It does matter. Our kids should put their best foot forward. They should try to look good, but it shouldn't become an obsession. Just like anything else, that would make it unhealthy. All right, does that make sense? Kate, let me know if that has helped you. I very much hope it has. And let's move on to the next question, which is from Caroline. And she writes, what about children who are neurodivergent, like PDA or autistic? For them, the no's, like saying no, aren't just a tiny sting, but rather their brain perceives it as a threat to their nervous system, which sends them to freeze, flight, or fight mode. And in worst case scenarios, could eventually lead to burnout. What would you suggest to families with those kinds of kids? We still want to raise them resilient, grateful, and not entitled. However, it's also our job as parents to accommodate their nervous system needs. What should we do? Okay, so I need to preface this with a disclaimer that I am not an expert on any kind of neurodivergence or special needs. Okay, so this is not my area of expertise. I'm not an expert on anything, but if I'm an expert on anything, then it would be more on mindset coaching for us parents. Okay, and on helping us feel empowered, organized, loving our life, feeling like a leader. I'm here to turn you into the leader that you're meant to be in your household. However, I know that many of my students have children who have neurodivergent labels like PDA or autistic. And I want to say that you are absolutely right that you still want to raise them resilient and grateful and not entitled. No matter what your child's diagnosis or special need or challenge is, the temperamental challenge we spoke about, spirited kids, it could be sensory processing disorder, it could be anything, right? Whatever it happens to be, it's very important for them to experience no's. Okay. They do need to learn how to handle disappointments. That's really, really, really important for every single child. So I just want to, encourage you, Caroline, in that mindset. Okay. Okay, so the first thing is to say that you are right, as far as I understand, that for some children, particularly with PDA profiles, hearing no, right, can trigger a real nervous system response, okay, not just minor frustration. And to be honest, even if a child doesn't have PDA, some children really feel, hurt, uh, shocked, triggered by hearing no. And if I'm even more honest than that, look, I also do. I get triggered when I hear a no. I want to hear a yes. It upsets me, right? And that might become even worse for kids with particular diagnoses, okay? But the thing that you have to understand is that accommodating their nervous system, right, being a good leader for them doesn't mean avoiding boundaries, okay? It just means delivering them wisely. So, from what I understand, the point is not to abandon resilience, but build it in a way that is developmentally appropriate for them. Okay, so for what might that look like? Well, first, you want to regulate. Okay, the no shouldn't be in a triggered state. If the child is in fight or flight or freeze, they're not going to be able to learn. They're not going to be able to cope very well, right? And so you need to co-regulate with them. You need to keep things calm. You need to deliver it with, softly. It doesn't have to be abrupt. It doesn't have to be a harsh no, right? So the child asks for ice cream and the answer to ice cream is no right now. It doesn't have to be no, right? Which would be triggering to anyone. It could be, oh, sweetie, I hear that you want ice cream. We're not going to be able to have ice cream right now. You're talking in a calm voice. You're showing calm body language. You're saying things gently. Maybe you're offering them hope like tomorrow will be a good day for ice cream or after dinner we'll have ice cream. So you're staying calm. You're staying grounded. You're staying connected. And you're helping them to come back into that window of tolerance. Okay. The second thing is to offer the structure, but also offer the support, right? Offer that sense of safety. Okay. The no is still present. You're still saying no to the thing, but it can be delivered with predictability, with softness, with choices within limits, right? For example, we're not having screen time now, but you can choose whether we build with blocks or we go outside. Right. So you're not being permissive. You're not just rolling over and letting it go because of their nervous system. You're being a thoughtful leader with awareness of their brain and their brain needs, right? And then the third thing is to strengthen resilience, maybe gently, but to strengthen it, exactly as you're saying, right? True resilience isn't just about hearing the no, it's recovering from the disappointment. And unfortunately, we only learn to recover from disappointment when we practice it, okay? That's how it works. We face our fears, we face our challenges, and we overcome them and we adapt to them. Maybe slowly, but we can, right? So you can teach that over time through gentle exposures, right? Through emotional coaching, through lots of modeling, right? Where you're still going to say no, but you're saying it with attunement, with clarity, with a deep respect for how their brain works. Because being neurodivergent does not mean being incapable, okay? It just means that you as a parent need a wiser strategy, a little bit more patience. It might take a lot longer than it would with other children. It might take a lot more co-regulation and calming from you, but you can get there. And you need to actually believe in them, okay? So support that, post meltdown reflection. You don't need to shame them. And the most important thing is for you not to get triggered if possible, right? But frame every calm comeback as a win. Hey, sweetie, you really wanted that ice cream. It was very hard for you to hear the no, but you're okay and you did it. And huge kudos and huge well done to you. Okay. Okay, Madet Wright says, conflict resolution method or tips for homeschooling children, different dynamic compared to classroom dynamic. So I would very much recommend that you do read that nonviolent communication book because it's a lot about conflict resolution and I find it really, really helpful for any dynamic, to be honest. You also write, our 3 young sons have shared toys. I've avoided each having their own toys besides maybe a stuffy animal. Thoughts? I do the same. My children don't have their own toys, although sometimes they'll get a Lego set, or something like that is theirs. But usually that will get reabsorbed into the general collection, after a little while. So they'll build it, they'll enjoy it, and then, that will kind of get reabsorbed. I like the idea of having just a family collection of toys that, I have 5 kids. They each kind of go through their different stages of being interested in the toys and then moving it on to their next sibling or playing with it together. So yeah, you have a few things that are yours. You get, an art kit for your birthday. It's going to be annoying if your siblings break into it, but generally speaking, most of the things in the home are for everyone to use. Okay, HMATH Matson 3127 writes, Hi, Avital. Thank you for all you share. My question is about toddlers and food. I come from parents who made me finish everything on my plate. I'm raising my daughter to eat until she's full, and if she doesn't finish what's on her plate, she says she's hungry later. Oh, and says she's hungry later. She's allowed to finish what is left from the last meal. My worry is that she tends to eat mostly the carbs and very little protein. I'm worried she isn't eating enough. Then she often asks for candy or some other treat. I'm unsure of what boundaries to put on food and treats. I don't want her to start an unhealthy relationship with food. What is your advice? Thank you so much. Okay. So I really like Ellen Satter's division of responsibility. And her idea is that you decide what and when and where, and they decide how much to eat. Okay. So your job is the menu and the routine, and their job is the intake. And you can trust their hunger cues, even if the balance isn't perfect on a day-to-day basis. Over the week or over the month, it often evens out. So, young children go through phases of undereating and then overeating. They adjust and they correct sometimes. So you don't need to worry about it every single day. Okay. Now, you want to balance the plate. And if you see that she's just eating carbs all the time, then you can offer more protein and more fat and more fiber at the meal time. Okay. I wouldn't stress too much about ratios per meal, but if over a few days or over a few weeks or a few months, she's just primarily eating carbs, then don't offer those. You're in charge of what's on the menu. You can give her a plate full of protein and fat and, and fibers, as I say, and not offer so many carbs so that she gets more accustomed to eating the things that she needs in order to grow and be strong. Okay. And then I would decenter the sweets, right? You don't need to demonize them, but you do need to tell her these are sometimes foods. These aren't good for us. We have them once in a while. Don't reward using treats. I wouldn't completely ban them either, because, at a birthday party here, there, that, they happen, I don't know, Halloween or whatever. But I think just less drama and less kind of availability of sweets, right? Like, you don't need to buy them. They don't need to be in the house. And if she didn't eat her lunch, then now she can eat her lunch if she's hungry, or a fruit, or whatever it is that you do offer. There is no need to give her candy or some other treat just because she's asked for it. Of course she's asked for it. We're all addicted to sugar in our culture and in our food system. That doesn't have to be on offer, especially if she hasn't had healthy food as well. Now, with that said, in my home, I'm not very controlling about food. I am very honest, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, and research is a bit iffy on this, but I'm very honest about what food is good food for you, for your development, for your health, and what food is detrimental to your health. I don't think labeling food as good or bad is as terrible as some people think. I think it's actually important to teach children what food does to you. And yeah, white sugar, for example, or processed foods are bad for you. You can have a little bit of them. It's fine. But having too much of them is going to destroy things like your gut health, or make you, develop all sorts of issues, or make you overweight or whatever. And I think it's important for kids to know that and learn that. But what's much more important is just to have the offers at home be things that you stand behind and that you're okay with, right? Like, oh, I'm not offering things, how old did you say your daughter is? She's a toddler. Right? A toddler doesn't do the shopping. A toddler doesn't decide what's on the menu. You decide what's on the menu. So if you want there to be more protein, etc., in the home, then you just offer those things and you don't have the other things around and available. Does that make sense? Now, if you want to include treats once in a while intentionally, like for us, Saturday mornings, I always bake some yummy cakes or cinnamon buns or that kind of thing. And that's our time where we have our yummy sugary things, and it's fine for me. Like, I don't mind that. I think it's good not to make it some forbidden fruit that you never have. For me, I guess I treat it a bit like I treat screen time. Screen time is not good for you, but having it once in a while is fun and nice and part of our modern day culture, and you can enjoy it. It's not a big deal. You don't need to demonize it. You don't need to make it, such a big deal, but it wouldn't be wise to have it all the time. And I feel the same about sugar. Once in a while, you enjoy a great piece of cake, you have some cookies, that's wonderful, but you don't need to have it in excess, because that would be a problem. I just, I just wonder, like, what happened to moderation? Like, what happened to all things in moderation, and for us to be able to help our children to moderate? Because, God bless them. How are they going to moderate in the face of dopamine hits and sugar addictions and all of that stuff? They're not. We have to help them. That's how I feel about screen time, and that's how I feel about sugar. I think we make it way more complicated than we need to in our culture. That's the truth. Olona sorry, I'm going to say this right. Olonar are many. Sorry, I don't know why I had trouble pronouncing that. Thank you for saying that. My absolute pleasure. Madette Wright says, thank you so much, Avital, for your work. I'm wondering if you have read the Me Epidemic book by Amy McCready. Thoughts on her work? I might be getting it confused with the selfie generation. So I want to be careful what I say. I think I've read both of them, but now I'm not remembering which one was hers. Maybe they were both hers. I'll have to look it up. Anyway, I read them both and I thought they were both excellent. Madette, right? Everything you are sharing is so helpful. So good to hear your thoughts and pick your brain. Amazing. Wonderful. Okay, guys, if you like picking my brain and if you find my thoughts helpful, you know what to do. Join the studio today before it closes, because this is where I do this stuff all the time. Okay. Olana, am I saying that right now? Okay, thank you. It's okay. I also have a difficult name, so I'm used to people mispronouncing my name as well. I don't take it personally because I'm unoffendable. Did you guys watch my most recent video on YouTube? Go and watch it after this. It's all about raising unoffendable kids. Okay. Next question. How do you feel? This is from Lena, and she writes, how do you feel about homeschooling, unschooling, different educational systems like Waldorf, classical, public school, etc.? Okay. So that's a massive question. And I've actually had experience with most of these. So I've had experience in my own personal life with homeschooling, with a little bit of unschooling. We dabbled in a bit of unschooling, with Waldorf school, with Montessori school, with public school, although it's a bit different because it's religious public school. So I don't know. And it's in Israel. So that would be a bit different. I've had experience with Acton academies, with Reggio Emilia type preschool. So yeah, here's what I will say. The system matters less than the fit. Okay, there are pros and cons for every educational system. And what builds confidence and curiosity in one child might crush another, right? The real question is, does this model work for you, your family, and your child in this season of your life, right? Does it help your child to thrive and grow and stay connected to their love of learning? Does it help your family to have a normal schedule or to manage your finances, right? Because even if a school is a perfect for a child, but it's breaking you at the bank or it's breaking your schedule, it might not be the right thing for your family. I like to look at my family like a holistic unit, right? What works for all of us right now? What can we all manage? Like, we have limited resources, time, money, energy, attention. How can we split it up between all of us, myself, my husband, our children, in a way that makes sense for our family? And so the system really matters, and it matters for our family as a whole. And then it also matters for our particular child, right? What will work for that child? Will they have good friends there? I think people tend to overlook peer influence when they choose a school and look purely at pedagogy. And I think peer influence is just as important, if not more important. Your kids, like, at least 50% of the reason to go to school is to have friends, is to make friends, is to have, social interactions, especially from the age of 7 and up, when it becomes really crucial for kids' development. And so, yeah, that's something I would really, really look at. What kind of community is it? What kind of people does it produce, right? What happens, what kind of families go there? Do we connect with these? Do we like them? I think pedagogy matters, but it needs to be balanced out against all the other things as well. So what's working for us in this season of our life? What can we afford comfortably? What are we willing to invest in terms of commutes and drives, etc.? Obviously, there's also laws and regulations in different countries and in different states. And then also what works specifically for my child. Now, I've had I think the best experience in schooling that I've had is probably with a Waldorf style school, but it's not a very rigid Waldorf style school. And that's one of the problems with Waldorf, is that sometimes it becomes really a bit too rigid. And I've been lucky in finding a school that is like that, but that is not rigid. But I've had really good experiences in Reggio Emilia in a regular school. I might not like the textbooks and the homework, but I love the kids and the families, and I love the warmth, and I love the high academic rigor and skill. So again, pros and cons. I personally am just not dogmatic. I don't think it's wise to be dogmatic. I think we have to look realistically at what we have around us, what the possibilities are. And here's the thing, no matter what school you send your child to, you are the curriculum. Okay, regardless of the school style, your home culture is what is going to teach them the most, right? You're building their character, their worldview, their belief system, their leadership, their grit, their relationships. Those are coming from parenting, not from the syllabus. Okay, so in some ways, I don't really care what school your kid goes to, as long as it's not damaging them, as long as it's not ruining them, as long as they're not getting bullied there, right? As long as it's not a school that is filled with like violence and terrible ideologies and indoctrination, they are primarily going to be learning from you, from your role model, from what you do on the weekends and on the vacations and on the evenings and in the mornings. And so you really are the curriculum. I would much rather you put all your effort into creating an incredible family culture. And yes, it would be amazing if you could be supported by the school as an institution that you believe in, that you feel belonging to, that you find great friends in, that you love the way they teach, that they spark curiosity and interest. But I've just been very disillusioned from a lot of schools. And I think it's important to understand that that you can't really outsource parenting or even education to the school. I mean, you can't. The school is not going to teach your kids what you consider to be the classical canon, right? The must-read books. They're not going to teach you, they're not necessarily. You'll be very lucky. It's very rare to find the school that is going to teach your kids history in the way that you want them to learn it. Values or character development is not at all something that the school is going to do for you. Even social skills, even solving, just yesterday, someone was telling me, oh, the school isn't helping me with a bullying situation. So much of it is just going to come down to you. Okay. And your child is going to emulate you, your lifestyle, your life choices, the way you run your home, the way you run your career, the way you react to risk or to failures or to challenges or to grief. Right. So don't romanticize school, but also don't demonize it. Okay. Every option has trade-offs. Resilient parents evaluate, they adapt, they course correct. We're not chasing perfection, but if the school is really wrong, then we move school, if you can. And if you can't, then you make, you compensate for what the school is missing in time outside of school. Say, oh, school never does anything in nature. Okay, we'll go into nature. School doesn't build us community. Okay, we'll build community in church or in, the gym or whatever. Okay, so you've got to pick what is working now for your child, take what works, leave the rest, and then compensate for the rest at home and just stay open to change. Does that make sense? I hope it does. York says, I ended up following the child and found the best fit was Montessori. A homeschool was not for me. Exactly. Homeschool isn't for everyone. Unschooling is something I am not super on board with anymore. I dabbled in it for about 5 minutes, literally just a few weeks. Like I said, there are some kids that unschooling is going to work for them. But if you're not a self-starter, if you don't have the willpower to sit and be rigorous and work hard and learn things even when they're boring, then I think leaving it completely up to the child is not super fair on them. I think it's better to offer some structure and some support, because we all need to overcome things that aren't necessarily always our preferences and our choices. So I'm not crazy about democratic schools and unschooling for that reason. Nan says, there is zero difference from a slice of bread and a pound of sugar. Laughing my tush off. Okay, thank you. That's a very rude way of saying that. But yeah, there is a difference actually, because even though carbs and sugars both, spike glucose in the same way, eventually there's a difference between eating, say, whole grain breads and eating processed white sugars. So it does depend. The quality of the food itself and the buildup of the food itself does depend. But yeah, if you're having too much sugars or too much carbs, then of course, you're going to have to adjust that and increase things like proteins and fats into your child's diet. But this isn't my area of expertise, clearly, so we don't need to linger and debate that. Okay, Let's keep going because I have a few more questions and we're already an hour and 20 in. This is from Alyssa. She writes, hello again, Avital. I have another question. I love that you encourage play, and I've always followed that lead since my kids were little, and my kids are completely obsessed with playing, so much so that they have to be told to stop playing and be reminded to pick up after themselves after they eat, brush their teeth, put on their pajamas, change their clothes, even though it's been expected of them every time and they have been reminded of it consistently for many years. They still get so stuck in play mode and need to be reminded. My sons are 8 and 11. My question is there such a thing as too much play? How do I snap them out of it for a time so they can stay on top of their responsibilities without being reminded? I didn't mind reminding them, as of course I'm their mom, but I feel like they're at the ages where they shouldn't have to be reminded of these simple things that they have been taught since they were at least 5. When they were little, I used to put simple charts of how to do everything on the wall, and I would walk them through the steps every time. They've been homeschooled, so I've been able to be on top of them to remind them as much as possible. But to be honest, at this point, it's getting very exhausting. How can I handle it? Okay, I have to actually be honest with you and tell you that I'm in the same boat as you. I have some kids, even slightly older kids, who I find that I need to remind them of things that I would think that they should be able to do by themselves, and it is frustrating. So I am with you in the same boat. Here's how I'm coaching myself. Okay. The first thing is that I want to move from reminding them to teaching accountability. Okay. Because when you keep reminding them, that teaches dependency, right? That keeps them dependent on you. So you want to replace clear routines and natural consequences with these constant reminders. Okay. So for example, you can play after your teeth are brushed, but not before. Okay. As soon as one game is over, that game needs to be cleared up before you move to the next thing, right? You want to teach them that there is a sequence of events, just like you taught them with the charts, right? Hey, you're running outside to play now? Pause. What are you supposed to do? Now, instead of telling them what they're supposed to do, I want you to ask them, what do you think I'm going to tell you right now? What do you think you've forgotten? Look around the room and ask yourself, what was I supposed to do before I ran outside to play? I know you know this, so think about it. Okay. The next thing is use external cues instead of your voice. Okay. Things like timers, things like those checklists you were using, things like music cues or alarms, right? Or posted routines like you had that can build the independence and shift responsibility from you to the system, right? It's not me constantly reminding them. But you can also teach them to use certain visual cues as a reminder for themselves. Like, every day when you open the door to your room, the handle of the door reminds you to look around. Have I switched off the lights? Have I put away my laundry? Have I made my bed? Okay. Every day when you come to leave the house to go out and play in the yard, the handle of the door, as I'm opening the door, it prompts me to look around and to remember, wait, did I not clear my plate from lunch? Have I not put away my shoes yet? Right? Now, play is not the problem. There's no such thing as too much play. I really believe that. That's wonderful. Like, this is the best testimonial to my work that I can read, that your kids are playing for hours a day and it's become a problem. Awesome. That's a great problem to have. So don't shut down the play, but you've got to train the transitions. Okay. So physical anchors, like before we move from A to B, before, or at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's an alarm, right? That kind of thing. Like we use an Echo, an Amazon object that reminds my kids to feed the dog, okay? Or to brush their teeth in the morning. Or, I can't put alarms for everything, but for a few things like that. And then anchor certain things. As soon as you finish breakfast, you put your dishes in the dishwasher or you wash up. As soon as you take your shoes off, you go and put them in the right place, right? You want to just train that these things are happening at the moment. Now, stop telling them what to do and start asking them, wait, what do you need to ask yourself now? Pause, reflect, right? And start training them to take that accountability, okay? All right, I hope that helps. It does take time. They're young. Listen. Parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. All right, next question is from Gianni, and she asks, thank you. This is so helpful. Do you have any book or other educational resources for parenting and disciplining toddlers at 18 to 24 months? Okay, so I think I do. I've got a whole Amazon book list that I should check in on. I don't know when I updated it last. But I really like the book No Bad Kids by Janet Lansbury. I think it's calm, it's clear, it's firm. It offers discipline strategies for toddlers, and it's really good for understanding tantrums, for limit setting, for respectful boundaries without being too permissive. I think Rye parenting often gets that really right, that it doesn't lean too much into permissiveness. I think they overdo it on the respectful language where it becomes a bit forced and it becomes a bit robotic. Like, I need to ask your permission every time before I touch you. Like, I'm your parent. We touch each other. I pick you. It just, to me, it's a bit much. I don't think you need to ask a baby permission to change their diaper. I think you just need to treat babies, lovingly, warmly, with respect for sure. But it's like this absolute emphasis on constant consent for every little interaction with our children seems to me really a bit much. But generally speaking, I like the attitude, right? I like the attitude of understanding that kids aren't bad, that kids are developing, that kids are growing, that we need to make a lot of time and space for independence, for play, empowering them, and be really firm and clear on our expectations without being angry or punitive. So I like that. I think The Whole Brain Child by Dan Siegel and Tina Payne gives you simple language and tools for helping toddlers handle big emotions and keeping you in charge. And that's good. It really teaches a lot about brain development and regulation. So I think that's really good. And there are a whole bunch of other books that I'm sure are great and I have on my list, and you're welcome to go and check them out. But I think that's a good place to start. And I also want to say, like, your own instincts, right? Paired with some structure, right? Kids this age really thrive with predictable rhythms, with clear physical limits, with emotionally attuned leadership, with a lot of love and warmth. So really trust yourself, okay? Don't go it alone. Make sure to check out my book, Reclaim Play, which is also very helpful for the toddler years because it's all about how to get children playing independently. And I think that is life-changing for kids and for adults. And also make sure to join the studio. It's open today. Today is the last day it's open of the whole year. And a year is a really long time in a child's life. So this is the perfect time to join at highfam.com/studio. All right. Hope that helps. Next question is from Jillian. Jillian writes, how do I handle my 3-year-old who has the hardest time sharing with friends? He's in a play school program 2 days a week and does much better there. However, whenever we see friends to play, there is always some type of meltdown around the toys. He gets possessive and asks me to hold a huge hoard of toys so the other kids don't get them, which I kindly say I can't do. It matters whose house we're at. I'm not sure how to handle these meltdowns and what skills I need to give him to help us have a better time. Okay, so the first thing I would do is to pre-coach him before the play date. Okay, so you say something like, you might feel like you don't want to share these toys, and that's normal. Let's practice what you can say instead, or let's put away your favorite toys that you're not going to want to share. So I actually tell my kids, hey, Jenny's coming over to play. I noticed that you have your big airplane out. She'll definitely go and play with that. Are you okay with that? And if not, let's put it in the cupboard and only get out toys that you're okay playing with and sharing. And that can be really helpful because that gives them that sense of control and decision and planning. Like, I wasn't just bombarded with a kid coming in and messing up my stuff. I made a plan for what I'm happy to share and what I'm not happy to share. So you got to preview what's likely to happen and rehearse the responses in advance. Okay, I'm not going to let you hit. You can't grab toys from our guests. You can't, take things and put them in my lap for me to keep them. I'm busy having coffee with my friend. And it's not nice to take toys away once our friends are already here. But if you want to put them away in advance, we can do that. A 3-year-old can sometimes really understand that already. Okay. So you can also create a special toy stash, right? Let them choose 1 or 2 off-limit toys before the friends arrive. Everything else is going to be shareable, and you need to tell them, okay, everything else that's out here, everybody's going to share with. Okay, so that gives him that control without the hoarding. Okay, and then you want to focus on emotional recovery. Okay, it won't be perfect. Don't expect flawless sharing at the age of 3. Okay, I don't know many adults who share flawlessly. But your job is to stay calm, okay? You can label the feeling. Yeah, it's hard to let go of your things. It's hard sometimes to share, and walk him through repair after the meltdown. Okay, come, let's go and say sorry that we didn't make them feel welcome. Maybe you can offer her a different toy instead. And I think it's helpful to teach kids that age some really good, simple tactics for negotiating, sharing in a good way. The best one is turn taking, right? You say, here's an egg timer. What should we do, guys? Should we do 5 minutes each? often when we've actually come to the solution, they're not that interested in the toy anymore, right? It's more about figuring out this, this tension and this friction between them than it is the toy itself. Like one has 5 minutes and then the other has 5 minutes and then they just drop it and go off and play with something else, because it's not about that. It's about learning the conflict resolution skills themselves. Okay, I hope that helps. Madette writes, thoughts on making your child apologize to each other or to others? I understand that I have to exemplify this myself. I also don't know how or when to apologize to my kids. I believe I have a whole video about apologies and forced apologies. Please go and check it out. But I do want to answer you here. And I would say this. It's not useful to teach kids to apologize through gritted teeth. Like, I'm sorry. Right? That's not a useful apology. That's not a useful life skill. Madette says, can it be dangerous to apologize to our children for certain things? Is there such a thing as over apologizing? I mean, I'm sure there's such a thing as over apologizing. Of course, if you're always saying, oh, I'm sorry, then, maybe you're not standing up for yourself. Maybe you're taking on responsibility for things that aren't your responsibility. Maybe you're subconsciously sending the message to your kids that you're terrible and that you always need to apologize. So sure, there is such a thing. But I think apologizing to our kids is actually a great modeling strategy. It's not easy to deliver a heartfelt, well-rounded, real apology. And a real apology sounds something like, I'm really sorry for yelling at you this morning. That wasn't cool. I'm not proud of myself. I lost my cool and I should have stayed calm. And I'm sure that it was scary for you. And I shamed you and I raised my voice and it was embarrassing and humiliating. And I want you to know that I'm working on my temper management and I'm going to try and talk calmly next time. I was very frustrated with your behavior. I'm still upset with your behavior. It wasn't okay what you did, but my response was unwarranted and uncalled for. And it was an over response and I'm sorry. Okay. So in other words, you're not letting them off the hook, but you are taking accountability for your part in things. You're showing how you're going to try and make amends in the future. You're owning that you did damage and caused harm, and you're empathizing and validating their experience of you. That is a good idea. Now, it's also a good idea to facilitate our children practicing apologizing often and learning to make amends and repairing in their relationships, because yes, that is important. So I wouldn't force it, but I would say, hey, you just hit your brother. You're feeling out of control right now. I want you to go and take a break. When you're calm enough to come back and apologize properly, you can rejoin the family. And then when our child is calm, they can apologize. And if they just say, I'm sorry, then you can say, I'm glad that you're sorry. That's not a full apology. I do want you to take account of what you did. Say what you did. Say how you're going to do it differently in the future. Say how it impacted the person in front of you. Learn to give a full apology, and then people can forgive you, make amends, and move on. Does that make sense, Madette? All right, we have 2 more questions and not a lot of time, so let's quickly finish these off. And I'm just encouraging you all to check out the studio because it closes today. Did I say that already? Okay, the Sunday school at my church doesn't have much control in the kids' classrooms. The ages are 6 to 10 years old, only about 10 kids. I plan to volunteer to help out. How can I put myself and eventually the leaders to get the children to do the activity and change their hearts to cooperate? And this is from Bebop Boop. Okay, so first of all, you've got to lead with clarity, not with chaos, right? Kids this age need clear expectations, visual structure. So I would start every session with, here's what we're doing, here's how we'll do it, here's what I need from you, right? Predictability builds that sense of safety and it builds cooperation. Okay. The second thing is something taken from peaceful parenting, which is the idea of connecting before you direct. Okay. So before giving instructions, build rapport, right? Learn their names, use eye contact, use some humor, tell them some jokes. It's got to be fun. You've got to have some shared moments. They've got to think, oh, this adult is worth listening to. She's not just lecturing at me, right? Kids follow the people that they feel seen by, that they feel connected to, that they enjoy their energy. So it's got to be fun and interesting. And then finally, I would say coach for identity, not just for behavior. Okay. So say things like, we are peacemakers here, right? We're kind leaders. Can you show me that? Right? Calling kids up into who they can become really shifts their behavior from, just compliance with the rules to conviction. Like, I am a leader. We are great. This is a good group. We are peacemakers. We are, sweet kids. We are such good kids. They want to rise to our expectations of them. So hold high expectations and identify them as fantastic in whatever way, right? This is such a great group. I'm so proud to be a part of this. I'm so happy I get to be with all of you. You all have such good hearts, right? Focus on what's good about them and build that up, because people generally rise to our expectations of them and they fall to our low expectations of them. Okay. Last question for today. Hi Avital from Anna. She says, I've been mulling this over in my mind for years. I'm curious to hear your wise opinion. What role do you feel parents should play in their kids' education, given that the child attends a traditional middle school? Should parents check homework for completion, for accuracy, for best effort? Should we check on the child's grades? Do we intervene even if the child doesn't want to admit they're not understanding something like decimals and math? I've taken a hands-off approach, but as school gets more difficult and my kiddo is entering middle school, I'm wondering what my role should be. Do you have any advice? Okay, so in middle school, you kind of need to shift from manager, which it sounds like you weren't anyway, but a lot of people are very managerial in primary school, to mentor. Okay, so your job isn't to control the work, but it is to coach the skills. Help your child with time management, help them with asking for help them with organizing tasks, help them with decluttering their drawers and, sharpening their pencils and making a good work environment. You don't need to check their answers, but you do need to check their thinking. Are they planning out? If they said they're having a play date, did they factor in the time for the homework? If the test is tomorrow, is tonight a good day for a movie, right? You've got to kind of be talking to them about long-term thinking, about working towards goals, about making wise decisions, about asking for help when they need it, right? Just helping them stay on top of themselves more than you being on top of them, okay? The next thing I would say is to stay upstream. Okay, not be reactive. Okay, you don't need to wait for the bad grades. You need to create a weekly rhythm, right? Hey, every Sunday night, why don't we check in on your school stuff? I'll just ask you how the day went, how the week went. You tell me if anything's outstanding, if you're struggling with anything, if you need mentoring, tutoring, help, a new book, a new pencil, right? So it's just routine. It's like almost like you're the CEO, he's, one of your team members, and you have a weekly stand-up meeting, right? It's not a punishment, right? It just keeps you involved without micromanaging. And I think you do need to intervene when avoidance starts happening. Okay. If your child isn't displaying agency, then you're going to need to intervene a little bit more. Like if they get stuck with their schoolwork, but they're being really defensive, like they won't admit that they don't understand math, or they, keep flunking a certain subject, or, whatever it is, you find out they're cutting classes, then you've got to kind of kindly intervene. So you've got to say, hey, I know you're not lazy. I know you're not dumb. You're a really smart kid, but it seems like you're a bit overwhelmed when it comes to math. How about we tackle it together? What would help you thrive? What would help you succeed? What's missing for you to do really well in this, right? So you've got to connect with them. They've got to feel like you're on their team, like you see the best in them. You're working together towards the goal of them succeeding in school, and you're going to find a solution together because you're a well-resourced adult and they're not, so they can't always solve their own problems, but you're there to help them. Okay. I hope this helps. We're going to close up here. And I will address any questions about the studio later on today. And in fact, one of you wrote a question very here, and I missed it, so I don't want to miss it. Sorry. If anyone has any questions about the studio, let me know. Now, Madette asks, any more info on the studio? It's like an annual renewal subscription then. Yes, it's an annual renewal subscription. You don't have to renew. You can cancel whenever you want, but it is a yearly membership where I walk you through leadership training, and I give you the tools to establish routines and traditions and rituals, to glow up as a mom, to get fit as a mom, to declutter your house, to get out in nature more, to have family meals, like all those things that we have in our mind, like, oh, this is what I would do if I had more time. This is, how I get my house in order. Where do I even start? I'm so overwhelmed and sleep deprived. Come to the studio and we will help you. We will sort it out. We will get you on a track of confidence, of calm, knowing how to coach your kids, knowing how to raise resilient kids with common sense and values, even in a world that is full of, weakness or fragility or lost and confused young people. We're going to do it differently. We're going to really double down on your vision and on your values and on your strengths, and raise kids who are mentally tough and capable and warm, have a, strong backbone and broad shoulders, a thick skin, and a big smile. Aluna says, thank you for everything. Thank you for being here live. Much, much love to all of you. And I hope to see you inside the studio. Please go and check it out now. Read through the page at highfam.com/studio. Watch my video there. And if you have any questions whatsoever, just email us hello@highfam.com, or ping us over on Instagram at highfamlife, or leave a comment on YouTube. My team and I have eyes on it. We're going to help you get in there. We're going to help you get settled, because this is how you make massive transformations to your family and build the family life of your dreams. Much, much love. And I'll see you on the inside.